Kuva 99. How are you? Are you feeling better?
Yeah, a lot better than the last couple of days for sure. But
Good.
no football helps as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is. It's I watched some of the game last night, the Newcastle Southampton game, and it was just like, you just enjoy a game of football because you've got nothing riding on it. It doesn't affect you in the league position, and it's not your club. So I had no concern over VAR decisions or, oh my God, this person might score. It was great. It was great. Good fun. Good
Absolutely,
fun.
absolutely.
Good
And
fun.
the even the United Arsenal game, great game of football.
Yeah, really good game. Yeah. It was almost like a throwback to the kind of old ding dong.
Wenger, Ferguson, yeah, it
Yeah,
was.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was really good to see. Let's get into it. So, a couple of things I want to speak about today. Welcome to everyone in the chat. We've got people like Eunice and Daryl Denton, True Blue, Sue Smith. We've got JJR Make, all the good old faces that we see here. We've got Thomas Gonsalves, Tango Bin Al Sheed. Not seen you before, but I mean, welcome. Looking at your picture, though, I'm a bit worried. Mr. Pads, Grant Davidson. There's lots of people in here. James Harris. Davis is in here as well. So, look, let's get into it. Today, I want to talk about, first of all, I want to talk about Danjuma. Arnaut Danjuma is obviously joining Spurs today, pending this medical, which was meant to be last night, but apparently is this morning. And then I want to talk about the word backed. Kuva, as I said to you offline, I keep seeing a lot of Spurs fans debate about backed. Who's been backed? Has this manager been backed? So I want to talk about what does that mean to us as fans versus what's been agreed internally at football clubs as to being backed. So let's get into it. Danjuma, what was your, before we go too deep, what was your first thoughts when this news broke yesterday that we gazumped, which is a great word, gazumped Everton and taken the wide left man on loan till the end of the season? What were your initial thoughts?
I think the word underwhelmed comes to mind. We're talking about hoping to get some sort of world-class talent out of the people that are on the likes of Everton's radar now. Mm-hmm. This is like I don't know. I can't say he's a bad player. He doesn't look like a good one either. It's just a nobody sort of. It looks like a bench warmer to me. Mm-hmm. I can't see Conte dropping Son for him. Conte always strikes me. He's going to pick the biggest names he's got. Really, he seems to be that sort of manager to me. You'd have to really fall out with them to fall out of get out of the team.
Yeah.
So I'll just see it as a pointless signing. It's a filler for the bench. That's it.
Do you think that? I mean, one of the questions I asked to a few people yesterday was, I think this signing would look very different if it had happened after a couple of other signings. And what I mean by that is, I've got a feeling that this is very much going to be Bryan Gil probably going out on loan somewhere in the last few days to a Spanish club. Lucas Moura's not playing. I think very much this was a player to fill that hole that they leave. And I think if we had already signed a right back, a right wing back and a centre half, we might then go, yes, sensible signing. But do you think it's had a bit more of a kind of, not negative connotation, but do you think it's had that underwhelming connotation because this is the first signing of a window where we do need centre-backs and right-wing backs. And Bryan Gil is still at the club.
Exactly. If the team was like in fully functioning order and we're going places, you'd say, yeah, okay, I can understand it then. It's just give a bit of depth to the team. But we're not talking about somebody I don't think's really going to have much impact on the first team. So it's not like sort of a, okay, let's rule out the world-class signings what we all hope for, but there is a level below that, and this sort of he just strikes me as mediocre. Perhaps that is what we're going for.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because look, do I think that this guy is better than Bryan Gil and Lucas Moura? Absolutely, I do. I've seen enough of him in Champions League games for Villarreal. I watch a lot of the Spanish league. There's talent there. There's pace there. I don't think there's any consistency there, which is a common theme with players we seem to buy. But it just screams again, doesn't it? And this is no this is not anything untoward against the player, right, Kuva? This is probably on the club. It just screams again of, was this planned? If was this a panic? Was this that we wanted Zaniolo, couldn't get Zaniolo, and went, oh my God, what are we going to do? Right, this guy's going to Everton, we can take him.
Well, yeah, we're talking about a few times off stream, weren't we? And on stream as well. I mean, I remember saying at the start of the window, what was it when people asked, what are you expecting this window? I said, we'll take one player that we draw the transfer out until the 31st and then don't end up getting them. Meanwhile, we get one bang average player on loan. At the moment, I'm looking horribly like I may be right. And that'd be a terrible thing. That's nothing to gloat over. That's something really miserable about.
Mr. Know-it-all.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, well, in the chat, there's people saying, oh, you're crying about it constantly having nobody on the bench who's an attacker, and now we have. But, I mean, you could fill it out with the youth team attackers. You've got attackers on the bench. Doesn't mean they're going to be good enough, does it? It's players for the sake of it, some of these signings. There's nothing there that excites me. There's nothing like, at least with Porro, you could say he played against us and, you could see he had a really good game there. With this one, he's been in the Premiership and you barely remember him.
Yeah. I mean, yes and no. I think that the difficulty with Danjuma is, look, lots of people don't watch other leagues, right? And that's fair enough. I don't think everyone should watch every league in the world, but some of the things he did at Villarreal were really good. Like, he was instrumental into their as part of their team that got to the semi-final of the Champions League. He scored quite a few goals during that Champions League run. Now, am I saying he's the answer? My question to you, Kuv, would be, what's the question? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, when we're saying this player's not the answer, and this player's, do Spurs have a set question that can be answered to know whether a signing is good, whether they're bad, whether it's planned, whether it's not? Do you know what I mean? It all feels like it's just a great big mess. This player's agent must have been going, who wants him? Spurs have gone, hang on, has that deal gone through yet?
Yeah, same deal we have with managers, isn't it? It's called winging it. We never really have any sort of directional plan. Just who's available, who's cheap seems to be a regular thing for players. Whereas on managers, we go, oh, let's get a great manager in and he'll be able to put everything together no matter how bad the squad is. Neither of these tactics is a very good one. It is a mess. The word mess keeps cropping up. It's not even desperation. I think it's just almost a resigned sort of feeling of, we'll just get somebody in, sit them on the bench, better than nothing. If we're looking at that as our method for signing players, it's better than nothing, then we're in even worse state than I thought we were.
Do you think, though, there is a... Listen, I'm just trying to sit on the fence with all of this, right? Because I do feel like I have to say that, because whatever you say when you're on YouTube, right, not you, whenever any of us say, it can get misconstrued. Do you not think that there's an element of, right, okay, well, let's at least see what this guy does for a few games first? And I don't mean a 20-minute cameo, but isn't there that we can look at and say, look, this guy has played Champions League football. We're not talking about a guy here that's coming out of the Japanese league or, fill in whichever country you want and has never played before. Bless me. Don't we owe it to at least see him for 4 or 5 games and then know whether or not he can do a job for us in a short-term capacity, whether that is as a first-team starter or an impact player off the bench? Do we not owe that at least?
Perhaps we can, but I mean, if the objective was to look at players that can step in ahead of Son, why leave it so late in the window? We're talking about just a loan sign in here anyway. There's a load of players could have got to do that. Some of which, even though he did get injured after signing him, Danny Ings was made more sense to me at the time. But we don't do that. It's just, it feels like it's the backup plan in case something doesn't work. If I'm even more cynical, it's like I said, and it's it was the plan all along to get some mediocre player on loan So it doesn't cost much. Get the fans off the back saying about no signings, and then deliberately let the Porro deal run out, which I dread to think that that's actually going to happen. That'll be the worst call I've ever made that's been right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just a few comments I want to pick up on. That first and foremost, and this is all about fairness for me. First of all, Bill, when you're saying Danjuma couldn't get a game at Bournemouth, in his last season at Bournemouth, he was their player of the year. So I think before we type things like that, we've got to kind of know the actual truth. Yeah. Listen, we can say it's only Bournemouth, but to say he couldn't get a game there and he was their player of the year is a complete oxymoron. The two things don't go together. That's like me saying Basuma's going to be Spurs player of the year this year, even though he's not playing. Not going to happen, right? Look, the thing for me is, it's a loan as well. It's a loan of convenience. You'll have the people saying, well, hang on, he was going to Everton, so how good can he be? I feel for the lad before he's even joined, if I'm really honest, Kuva, because I feel like I don't think anyone's going to give him a chance at all. And I'll be honest, for me, I'd happily see him start a couple of games. Preston at the weekend. Why not? Guys playing Champions League semi-finals. Why can he not play against? Do you know what I mean? Why can't you get a game against Preston? And,
I mean, if it's down to us, we were talking about this a bit earlier, weren't we? If it was down to us, we'd give him a go. No problem. He might turn out to be great for us. You never know, because Sonny is on that bad a form at the moment that you question it. But I remember saying to you a few minutes ago, will Conte do that? I don't think he will. I think he'll persevere with Son because, Son has made his name. He has proved himself at the highest level. It's a very difficult one to drop him because if you want Son to get his form back, how is he going to do that if he's not on the side? Now, that's a big decision to make. Drop a star player but dropping a star player in favour of a loanee. That's really something.
Of course, and then that all comes back to listen. I'm just trying to stay impartial in all of this, right? I'm just trying to say, look, I can't sit here and say, oh my God, I wanted Danjuma. I've not once mentioned that guy's name in any transfer window, and that's for me. It does stink of no plan, but he's become available. The club knew they're not going to get Zaniolo. I think Damasio said it live on Sky Sports yesterday that Zaniolo, we offered the same deal we did in the summer, which was a loan, of which Roma said the same thing to us now that they did in the summer of, no, if you want him, pay for him. Yeah. And I think what they've done is where they haven't got a plan in place, this was an easy option. That's what I think. But that's no disrespect to the guy. He could come in. He could come in his first 3 or 4 games, grab 3 or 4 goals, and all of a sudden the mood and the narrative around the guy completely changes, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, but for him as a player, nothing to lose, is that? He's getting a good chance on a big stage with us trying to push for Champions League football again. Wait, is it too late for that he'd be even registered for the Champions League? I'm not sure. Can't remember.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Either way, it's a chance to shine. There's no real expectation on him, is there? Yeah. Don't think anybody's going like, oh, it's the next big thing. We can get rid of Sonny now. We are looking at it as a loan signing. Is it a sensible one or not? We'll only find out by playing him, won't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Tom 94. I completely agree with this. I really do. When we're saying, let's look at the second half of the sentence. We're saying, not saying he's an amazing player, sure, but there is more to football than judging someone on just raw numbers. And I do feel. Listen, I watch a lot of YouTube shows, and I do feel we're getting to the point now where if this is the only way we are judging footballers, then this is a real sad indictment for me of football knowledge and people's understanding of the game. Now, what I mean by this, Kuba, is I was having a chat, I won't say with who, but I was having a chat with a friend earlier, and what we were talking about was there's been so many players down the line that, not for Spurs, in football, where you look at and you go, okay, let's look at their goal scoring record. Wide forwards, whatever it is. And you go, okay, underwhelming. But you look at some of those players that were the first name on team sheets. You look at those players that did the running off the ball for other players that dragged defenders away, players like Emil Heskey, right, who was always awful goal scoring record, people would say. But for England, yeah, for in a time when we had good players, for England and for Liverpool, was one of the first names on the team sheet because of the work he did, because of the space he provided for Michael Owen and taking players away and bullying them. Do you think we've got to the stage in football now where we're getting very short-sighted, where it's, oh, he's only scored this and assisted this, he's crap? Are we getting there?
I think without a doubt. You look at some of the players from past. I mean, one springs to mind in particular, and it would be someone like Peter Beardsley. He was always known, although he'd get the assists on him, people would look at his goal-scoring record and say, oh, he's not that good as a striker, is he? But he was an amazing player who provided loads of goals for his strike partner, especially Gary Lineker for England. There is a danger of looking at the stats far too quickly. Another example I'd make: Thierry Henry before he goes to Arsenal, Alan Shearer before he goes to Blackburn, and their strike rate's about 1 in 6 or something like that. It's a pretty poor rate. 23 goals in 114 games, I think, is the figure for both of them. Funny enough, but if you look at those figures, you'd think terrible forward. Yeah, but it's not the case, is it? You have to look further than that. It's really engaging what the player could become in a lot of cases. If they're like 30 plus already, you should know exactly what it is. But when it's a younger player, anyone below the age of 25, they could have a few more levels to their game yet. Hopefully they do in a lot of cases. It's just spotting it, isn't it? Giving it a chance.
Yeah, I absolutely. I feel like there's certain players where they have one job, right? Let's be really, really honest. Like, for example, if Erling Haaland stopped scoring the rate of goals he does, you'd say, well, hang on, that's your job. You stay up front, you score goals. But you look at other players where their game isn't just that. Their game, look at little Franco Zola. His game wasn't to be the top goal scorer at a club, but was a centre forward, right? Yeah, he dropped deep, but on paper, he's a centre forward. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not just talking about Danjuma here. I think we're doing this to footballers way too much now, where after every game, you're getting people bringing up stats, scores, their sofa score rating, they're this, they're that. And it's like, whoa, hang on. This is getting just a tad silly for me that we've never, I don't know about you, Kuva. Look, I know your age, you know my age. I've never needed this for the first 35 years of me watching football. All of a sudden it's coming more and more, and now this seems to be the only way we're told how we judge a player. I never needed it before. I don't need it now. I'll be honest, I don't need stats to tell me if a player's good in my eye, right?
Yeah, I'm with you, mate. I think the only time it really, I'd find it any use, is if I was trying to get the extra sort of 2-3% out of a team when we're already at the top. Because you're then making judgment calls between players of similar ability, and you might be looking at who offers the most, and you probably will go into the statistics then. The likes of Liverpool and Man City, they'll be doing it, certainly. When you've got half a team, though, you don't really need to bother with that. You just go out and pick some players can play some football and can offer something. They've got to catch the eye first in some sort of way. Sure. Otherwise, you are buying a sort of a journeyman sort of footballer, aren't you? You could argue defensively they can get away with not catching the eye because a lot of that's about being in the right position. In the fact that they don't catch the eye and keep a clean sheet would be an indicator for you,
right?
But a lot of cases you go with what you see because it's what all the teams used to do. It's the old days. I mean. It's hardly like people couldn't work out that George Best was a great player or Jimmy Greaves. Didn't need statisticians.
Yeah, and listen, I genuinely feel that we're getting to the stage now where every time I love a good football debate. I love when I watch two people have a debate. But when the debate is literally, let me bring up a screen and let me show you 15 million stats on what they did at this club, that club, it drains me. It drains me because if you and I watch a game of football tonight, right? If we watch what is it, Man U, Nottingham Forest, I'd like to think that I've seen enough football in my life that I don't need to go, who was good based on stats? I'd like to think, God, didn't so-and-so have a good game today? Yeah, the initial scouts that went out there for years and years and years, they went to games, they looked for someone that caught their eye and went, oh, I'm going to watch that guy again. He did a couple of things in the game I really liked.
You'd think, oh, he's got a turn of pace, or he really deals with the big defenders well,
right?
Even though he's a little bloke, or he's got a great leap. And then you put it all together and you thoroughly scout them. It's not like a couple of scouting missions and then base the rest on stats. You go 15, 20 times to see them, build up a good sort of portfolio of what the player's all about against different teams and different players. Yes, thorough scouting, isn't it? It takes time.
I'm not saying there's no stats in that, Coo. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there's no merit in stats. Of course there is. But when we get into the stage now where they're like after every game, I'm seeing like fucking expected goals. Expected goals based on what? Like this is such a ridiculous stat, right? Expected goals, expected pressures, ball given away in the final third. Great. But what those stats can't tell you is other things that a player did. And I'll give you an example of this. Right? My mate is a huge Liverpool fan, season to get older. And he said to me, when they signed Darwin Núñez, he said, a bit sceptical, obviously not seen loads of him because he's out in Portugal, but, you know, his stats look good. I want to see him. I want to see him before I turn around and tell the world he's crap. And he turned around and he said to me the other day, he said, you know what? He said, look, he's raw. He's really, really raw. Yes, he misses chances, but we are a completely different team when he doesn't play. When he doesn't play, we lose that running down the channels. We lose the fact that he stretches the pitch and takes defenders away. We lose that hustle and bustle up front. We lose the guy that can go from the right or the left. And he was going into all this and he said, the problem is all the stats are going to show is he's missed big chances. And that's where I look at players.
It's like when Kane's off form. Everybody gets on his back and, oh no, it's time for him to move on. He's dropped tools. You analyse his actual performances. He's still doing the centre forwards role. He's dropping back. He's being a target man for people to put the ball into. You take that out of the team and you haven't got a ready-made replacement for it, you're going to start struggling. You've got to play a different way. We've done it before. I remember under Pochettino for a while, Kane out injured, we'd put Sonny up front. You can't keep playing balls into his feet there and expect him to use his strength to hold players off and bring others into the team. We had to adapt and keep putting the ball into his path to run onto. Totally different style of play. There's absolutely.
Yeah, the two should go hand in hand. But when all I hear from people is, oh, the eye test. Sorry, the eye test is what people have used in football since its inception. Yeah. Right. The eye test is what made Brian Clough be able to go, I want that player from that lower league. And I remember like the stories of people saying, why do you want him? He plays for Port Vale. He's got a few attributes I really need. There were no stats in those days. Managers build teams. Let me ask you a question, Kuva. If I said to you right now, Declan Rice was joining Tottenham Hotspur from West Ham, yeah? We know it's not going to happen, but if I said to you, Declan Rice is going to be in our centre mid next year, you'd be happy, right? Good player.
Don't really think that's what we need, though.
No. You're missing the point.
Just in general, just in quality-wise.
Spurs support Declan Rice.
Good player, without doubt.
Right. Would you need to see any stats around Declan Rice for the last few years to know that he would be a good player in Spurs' midfield?
No, of course not.
Right. And this is where it becomes a chore. If Spurs were signing Danjuma for me as the out-and-out centre forward to replace Harry Kane on a long-term contract, I'd sit there and go, yeah, I want to know everything about his goal-scoring stats. But when we're using those goal-scoring stats for a guy that predominantly plays on the left-hand side, that has predominantly played for Villarreal, who are a very organised team, but not by any stretch of the imagination a free-flowing football team, and a Bournemouth team that would, again, have been struggling in the Premier League, how can we possibly judge this guy against the number of goals he's got? It's just mind-blowing how football fans have evolved.
Yeah, well, I suppose you get swamped with it on TV, you get drawn into it, don't you? It becomes the norm after a while. I think I'm more forgiving with a lot of the American fans doing it because they're used to it. The stats from baseball and American football were all over the place. It's an integral part of viewing nowadays. So I think it's more of a natural progression, but seems to have been seeping into Premier League football for a while now. They've got the technology, they've got Opta available to do it, so it kind of goes hand in hand in a way. But for me, I'm like you. I think we did all this time without needing these stats. I don't feel like I need them now.
Yeah.
It's making those miniature sort of decisions on a couple of players. Like I said, I don't like the fact you can't measure what a player should have done. How do you put that? How can you possibly rank that on a piece of paper? How can you put those stats together? Dummying the ball to let another player in. What stat is that under? It's
right.
You can't. So it's just an aid to what you see. It shouldn't be the deciding factor.
I agree. I just feel it's become so. I feel like those conversations have become so boring now. People used to debate footballers, and now it's just become, well, if you actually look at the XG on this guy, and if you look at his passing in the final, it's like, look, for example, Harry Kane, right? Harry Kane's our main source of creativity at Tottenham Hotspur, right? And has been for years. So I'm sure there's probably some stats knocking about that he gives the ball away in the final third more than any other player. Well, of course, because he's the guy trying more in the final third than any other player, right? So sometimes this is the thing for me. Stats can be so not misaligned, but they can be misunderstood. They can be used in a completely wrong way to see how good a player's performance was. So what I mean is, if Gary Lineker was playing, right, and Gary Lineker got a hat-trick, right? Gary Lineker, players like that didn't do a lot else, right? Let's be fair, he didn't. He'll tell you that. Got a hat-trick in a game, you won 3-2. People would be going, oh, yeah, but if you actually look at his pressing, yeah, the number of
he could have all zeros and then just 3 shots on target and 3 goals, couldn't he?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And this is the problem. This is why, I will never be down for those conversations. I will always take them into account and be like, yeah, okay, but I just can't. It can't be fully that. With that in mind, look, I think you're right. I said yesterday to Henry, I said, look, I've got nothing against the signing of Danjuma. We know what it is and what it isn't. But if you've brought him in, you've got to play him. Because if you don't, what's the point? What do you know what I mean? If you do not play this guy, what is the point of him coming to the club?
Yeah. What is the point? I always have been an advocate for, if you're going to bring players in, you've got to do it with the intent of improving your first 11. The only time you start looking at players to increase squad depth is when you've already got a first 11 that's good enough to be competing for the title. So Man City, they'll be looking for players to add depth to the squad. We should be looking for ready-made placements for the first team if we're making signings. Yeah. If we're not, why bother getting some dubiously talented players in that we're not sure of? Why can't we just have been working on a robust youth academy and bringing players in of our own? They'll be gagging for the chance and they'll know what the club's all about. It's a strange one. We're padding out a team that isn't good enough to win stuff at the moment. What's the point in padding it?
Yeah. I mean, I genuinely believe, and listen, I might be proved wrong. And look, we've got 6 days for me to be proved wrong. I genuinely believe that this means that Brian Hill is going out on loan. I think that's all this is. I think they want to give Brian Hill a loan move, but they're aware that we've got Champions League, FA Cup, league games coming up, and they need bodies. I purely believe that is all this is. I don't think we know it's not a long-term thing. I genuinely believe this is numbers in the.
How ridiculous to loan a player to loan another one out. Crazy, isn't it? Mind you, if we sign Porro, we got 4 right wing backs as well. So nothing makes sense to this club.
Let's talk about that then. Let's move on to the Pedro Porro thing. every day at the moment, it seems like we are getting updates from people like Fab Romano and Damasio, and they're Spurs are closer. They're inching their way to this, and Spurs. Yesterday, one came out. Spurs love this player. Spurs are in love with this player. Spurs are having more crunch talks today.
I'll tell you who doesn't love the player. That'll be Daniel Levy. Otherwise, he'd be here now, wouldn't he?
Right. I mean, Kuva, I'm watching Leeds snap up a record transfer for the forward they bought, right? Leeds have now just agreed terms for
McKennie.
For Weston McKennie. Now, listen, I'm not saying we should get those players. My point is that these clubs go, negotiate, and get something done in a few days. How are we 25 days into a transfer window, Kuva, and still what is appearing to be our number one transfer target still not over the line? This is criminal, isn't it?
Cool. Money. Anything to give the illusion we're spending money and then not do it. That's all I can see. What should have been our priorities? And we're always talking about this. Need to get another goalkeeper at some point. Need to get those central defenders sorted out. So we go for the fourth one of a line of wing backs that aren't good enough so far, and a loan signing for somebody we arguably didn't really need, but might be okay. Might turn out to be good, but it's a bit of a gamble, isn't it? Not much of a gamble. It's only a 6-month loan as well, isn't it? It's like there's no intent to really do anything with that. It is just he's a tea cozy of a player, isn't he? It's like you're going to have a cup of tea at some point. You might as well just keep it warm. I just don't get it. The planning on here. Leeds, for example, as you mentioned, the signing of McKennie, makes sense. They've got American players in there already. That you're building a link between both the national side and a club side. USA will be chuffed to bits about that.
If you look at their central midfield pairing, it could now be the exact central midfield pairing for USA: Tyler Adams and Weston McKennie.
Beneficial to both club and country. It's a good move. Good move all round. What do we do? We don't even seem to sign for the players for the positions we're weakest in at the moment. It's really baffling.
It's just, listen, I've said this the whole way through. It's not like I'm sitting here going, oh my God, I want Porro. I'd be a hypocrite. I've seen him play a few times, saw him play against us. I've seen a couple of other games for Sporting Lisbon, but not enough where I could go, I'll tell you what we're getting, guys. We're getting... The difficulty here is 25 days now. This guy was mentioned on day one of the window that we're in talks. We're now 25 days later. And again, this for me just screams that the manager, the director of football and the owner are just all not on the same page. Because if Conte has identified Porro as his right wing back of choice, and again, we'll have that discussion in a minute, but if he has, just for the sake of this argument, and he sees the hoo-ha going on in terms of getting this guy over the line, what is Conte sitting and thinking in that scenario?
Well, he's already questioning what the ambitions of the club are, hasn't he? You don't really need to go much further than him saying, what do we want to do? Finish 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th? The club doesn't seem to know. So what's he going to be? What plan is Conte going to have at the back of his mind? Stay here to do what when he doesn't know what the ambition level is? He's going to be watching certain players coming in thinking, I want to win things I could do with a player of this sort of caliber. And then he's actually being delivered, well, whatever it is. It seems to be random, really, doesn't it? I think our signings seem to be a collusion between Paratici and, most importantly, Levy. It seems to be the budget restrictions are well and truly in place. Paratici doesn't seem to be able to shift any players out, so we're not going to add to it. Not going to make any more room for it. I think we're absolutely hamstringed before we get anywhere, and we're churning out stuff that may or may not even fit what Conte wants. I think he must be frustrated as hell, to be honest.
Yeah. Listen, I won't go down the route of saying, well, this is exactly why I'd leave if I was him. But if I'm the manager, I'm looking at this and thinking, well, what's changing? Even with Danjuma coming through the door, it's still no money spent. You know, there's still nothing has been spent at the club this window. And I'm watching Villa sign players, Leeds sign players. You know, this is where I do feel for Conte. This is where I do feel for him. Look, I'm just confused as well. When I look at Pedro Porro, the world and his dog tell me that Pedro Porro is not an Antonio Conte type.
Oh, hang on. There's one comment ties that in nicely. A Tavakron Wembley, and just quite a recent comment. There we go. Positional need is utterly irrelevant to Levy. It's cheapness of the deal that's all important. We have a squad of 25 right wing backs if they're all cheap. It's true. Conte wants to manage a football club. Paratici would probably like to build a football club. Levy wants to just trade. That's what he's all about. He wants to buy at a reasonable value and sell on. He'll make a couple of exceptions every now and then, like a Forster or no problem, mate.
Not you. No, not you. So sorry. Sometimes when people say, "Have you had my super chat?"
Gotcha. Yeah,
I've always got them. I will come to them. Don't worry. I will. I'll get to it.
We're talking about we want to have a football club being run by a football man, and we have got the trader in charge, and he wants to trade. He wants to make some money off it and look like he's even a better businessman. Look like how he can take his skills to the football world and make money out of that. The thing is, he's not even doing that very well, is he? Look at all the rubbish we can't sell, or we have to sell at a discount, or even cancel the contracts for. It's just bullshit. Accepting it, I don't. Most fans don't nowadays, and I think we've got a manager that's going to show he doesn't accept it as well.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I just want to talk about that whole point of, you know, everyone told me that this isn't a Conte signing. That you know, he wants big, strong, powerful players that are good defensively as well as going forward. And what you hear about Porro is that he's good offensively, but defensively not very good and a bit lightweight. Now, look, I don't know, right? I'm not involved in the conversations that Antonio Conte has with his people. But again, what does this mean then? Is this going to be a case, Kuva, of if he comes in and does well, he's a Conte player? If he comes in and flops, it's we didn't back Conte. I'm just curious.
We always hear this. I'll say again, I'm of the opinion, if you have a director of football, very few of the signings are going to be actually what the manager's after. Yeah. It's to do with that. It's to do with the working together from director of football and the chairman. The chairman will say, here's the budget, see what you can do with that, see if you can provide for the manager. If your director of football and your manager get on really well, it can work perfectly. A lot of clubs do that. A lot of managers are very happy to do that and don't involve themselves in transfers at all. Real Madrid's going to be the biggest example of that, especially during the Galacticos period. It didn't matter who the manager were. They would go out and get the big name stars all over the place. Didn't always work, but they were doing
the fans wanted, right? They wanted to see a Galactico come in. They wanted a Beckham, a Ronaldo, a Cat. You know, they wanted those players.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Portuguese one as well that made all the fuss.
Figo.
Figo, yeah. Massive things that happen. That isn't going to be the manager thinking, speculative punt on Figo. It's going to be hugely ambitious chairman doing it. We don't have that. We have one that's got a set, very, very tight budget, very, very tight wage structure. We're not going to be splashing out on these players, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So we have to do it sensibly. And you'd have to argue we don't even do that. We buy a lot of absolute trash to go with some few real decent players in amongst it. But for every Bentancur and Kulusevski we have, there's a Jack Clark, there's a Njai, there's an Kudo.
How long you got for this list?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. just quickly, I'd just like to read out some super chats, and then I want to ask you about Skriniar. So super chats so far have come in. Mbappe James, big up to yourself, my man. Always in here. Great supporter of the channel. Has said Savva, Kane to PSG possibility nobody's talked about. Kuva, could you see in any way that, I mean, this, of course they can afford him, right? They're PSG. Can you see Kane going there? Is the lure of the French league enough for Kane to go, yeah, I'm going to end my career there? Is playing with Neymar, Mbappe, Messi enough of a lure?
I've got a feeling he wants Shearer's record. I don't think it. I think he'll want to stay in the Premiership if he can. However, PSG, without doubt, they pay top bucks for their players, don't they? So you can't rule it out. I just don't see it. It doesn't quite seem to be a fit to me. Especially with the likes of Mbappe there. He's I don't think he's going to want somebody as main striker there. He wants to be main man himself.
Right. So this is a non-starter in your books in every way.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
However, if the huge money bid comes in and they offer huge wages, you never know. Wouldn't rule it out.
Yeah. It's one of those things that in football we all go, never going to happen, and then one day you go, what? He did what? Yeah. Who signed who? But thank you very much for that super chat. Next super chat came in from Tyree Bennett, who said Danjuma averages 1 goal contribution per 2 games. It sounds good. And look, this is always going to be the flip side that can be argued. Who were the goals against, for which team, which competition? But on paper, again, his stats don't look the worst I've ever seen. But again, stats are not. They're not the key driver, are they? In every player. So, thank you for the super chat, Tyree Bennett. Kuva, I want to talk to you about Skriniar. There's look, all the links with Skriniar because of what happened. What was it? 3 summers ago now with Jose. I can't even remember. 4 summers ago, where we wanted him, got Joe Rodon. No offense, Joe Rodon. And since then, he's been a name on Spurs fans' lips forever. Solid centre-half, a leader of men, powerful, good in the air, proper defender, right?
Old school defender, isn't he? Proper stopper. Yeah.
He's available apparently for 20 million because his contract's running out. Fans now asking the question, I don't know if it's rightly so or not, why are we not getting him?
At the very least, you would have expected reject bid from Tottenham to be in there. We don't even hear that, do we?
Right.
So it's flabbergasting. He's light years ahead defensively of anybody we got. I definitely take to the Premier League. He's built for it.
Yeah.
I
think top defenders Kuva play anywhere. I think top players play anywhere. I'm going to be really honest. I think top players will play anywhere. This guy is a solid defender that knows how to play. He's played for Antonio Conte before, right? In the team at Inter. But I think you're right. The minimum you want to see is from Fabrizio Romano saying Spurs have £20 million rejected or accepted, but Skriniar doesn't want to join. Or, do you know what I mean? The minimum is that
something to indicate we have some ambition.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. But do you think, putting that aside, do you think there's enough lure, which is a good word? Is there enough lure for a Skriniar to join a Tottenham Hotspur right now?
Yeah, why not? We should be looking at he should be seeing a club that desperately needs 1 or 2 players to make a push back up for the top 4 again. Yeah. We're not a million miles away from doing that. To say you just need a couple of players to win something is something else. But I think if he wants to play in the Premiership, he wants to increase his wages. We can do all of that.
Yeah.
If he then acts as the cornerstone to build a successful team around, he could be part of that too. It could be an exciting move for him. If he's going to PSG instead, Is he going to get the same sort of experience? No, a bit different, of course. He'll get cruise to some easy domestic trophies, and but them at PSG, surely it's all about winning the Champions League. I don't think anything else for them now is a failure. They've been trying it for years now. Is he going to want to be part of
that? They're really struggling at the moment, PSG.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I agree with you. There's pros and cons. If you want to go and challenge yourself, I just feel that. I mean, let's look at this. If Skriniar is available for 20 million, surely shouldn't there be a lot more clubs right now sniffing around this guy?
You'd imagine so.
Yeah,
it's a bit puzzling, isn't it?
Perhaps we don't know that they're not Kuva, right? We don't
that's
know.
True. Perhaps the behind closed doors is them just saying no, we're not selling yet.
Yeah,
we're keeping them to the end of the season. Perhaps that's why it's all quiet.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Bob, listen, I agree with some of Bob's comments that are coming in about judging players too soon. I think I think it depends. Some players, I think you just know when they join, that they're not right. For me, for example, when I talk about a Richarlison, the reason I judge Richarlison is because I've seen him play before, but more than that is I don't think he'll ever get the game time he wants in his position. Yeah, do you know what I mean? So I don't see how he's ever going to become a sustained success when he's constantly being played on the left or the right rather than up front. But in general, I do agree with Bob. If players are not given a chance, how do we even say they're not good enough? A la Jed Spence.
It's true. When end of the day, any player needs some time to show what they've got. I think the first and foremost test would be, are they going to convince the manager in training to even get the chance? Because we're getting that vibe with Jed Spence. Manager does not trust him to start a game.
Right.
So, from my point of view, that has to be the first gauge of what you've got.
Yeah.
What you've got in your hands. If he can't convince the manager, he's not going to convince anybody.
Yeah.
With Danjuma, is he going to get that chance? Like I said, you're basically weighing up, is he going to play or is Son going to play?
Yeah.
We're talking about Golden Boot winner from last season with a proven track record at the club against somebody that maybe might do okay. Or maybe might do brilliantly. Is he going to get that chance? I just don't see it. I don't, despite Son playing badly, I think Conte's got too much faith in him.
Do you know what? This is the strange thing about football. And just quickly, another super chat from Mbappe. James, thank you so much, my man. He has said, as an Arsenal fan, I still think City will win the Premier League. Well, listen, you guys have put yourself in a wonderful position to win it. And Man City are chasing. So I suppose that's all you can do at this stage of the season is concentrate on not losing 3 more games than them. And
it's going to be disappointing if they don't win it from this position, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. 1 second. Who's this? Bob Spur's going to pop on for a little bit, he reckons. That would be nice to see Bob's little face, won't it? Sure. Yeah. Look, I think it's difficult, right? When you look at Danjuma, as we said earlier, this could be that he's signed in time, plays against Preston, grabs a couple of goals on his debut, stays in the 11 for the Man City game, plays a blinder, and all of a sudden we go, hang on, we've got a gem.
Yeah, that'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Can I see it happening? No. Does that mean it can't happen? No. But unless the player's given the chance, it just feels to me that it's a pointless signing. But I guess we'll see a lot of appearances off the bench from him, do you think?
Well, yeah, that could be. Or perhaps they're looking at him a little bit more flexible and where he can play, perhaps switching wings and things, cover for the other side as well. Talk of Kulusevski being out injured again, wasn't there? Don't know how true that's going to be. Recurrence of his calf injury. Perhaps we're looking at that. I don't know how versatile this player is, Danjuma, to be honest.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what to replace Sonny? Will we be talking about somebody that forces their way into the team, and then puts Son Heung-min on the bench for the rest of the season? Surely not. That'll be a hell of a position to be in. It would be a position where we'd surely have to try and sell him.
Yeah, I mean, listen. This is the difficulty of running a top football club, right? Is what do you do when you have a squad? For me, I'm not against this guy getting some games to start with, because I think if you're going to bring a guy in and you're looking and saying, okay, Son's not playing well, which he's not. I'm not being harsh. He's not playing well. I think you do it from the get-go. Otherwise, it sends out two messages to me. One is, okay, right, you're going to come in, we've got you on loan, but you're going to sit on the bench, even though the bloke in front of you isn't playing well. Then if Son is playing well in 10 games' time, you're saying to Danjuma, oh, well, look, I can't give you a game now because, look, he's playing well now. So it swings and roundabouts, isn't it? We all want to see Heung-min Son back to doing what he does best, but he's not playing himself back into any sort of form, is he? He's at the moment, he's not. He looks he looks really, really poor. And people can say, oh, well, he's got 4 goals this year, but when you break that down and he's got them in one game, well, 3 of them in one game, he's been really... I'm not even just talking about his goals, by the way, Kuva. His whole demeanour, his game...
Yeah, he's off it.
He's off it.
The confidence has gone. His touch has gone. His basic control at times you see failing him. Very slow to react. He's people are nicking the ball off him far too easily from it. He's not finding the space he used to, turning into packs of 5 players at times. He's just not with it. He's been drawn into the centre of the field now at times. I've spotted it, almost a Harry Kane sort of position. It's just not happening for it at the moment. I feel really sorry for him, because love Sonny. Who doesn't love Sonny when he's on form? Banging him in and smile on the face makes us all feel better. But can't deny that it's just not happening now. Is it just a case of hitting a few goals in and it all comes flying back, or you just don't know at the moment? So I suppose in that way, Danjuma makes sense to have another option, but isn't that what we were supposed to have with Brian Hill?
Well, this is the thing. I mean, it's difficult, right? I understand that managers need options. But what does it say? If Brian Hill's going out on loan and this guy's coming in, I suppose you can look at this in a number of ways as well, Kuva. You can look at this and to say, okay, they really like Hill, but they want him to play week in, week out and get regular game time, send him out, bring him back. Or he's not good enough. No one's going to buy him till the summer, so we'll let him go and replace him with Danjuma on loan. But either way, the whole thing looks a little bit unnecessary and convoluted, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, the other one that springs to mind with Brian Hill is perhaps we're actually looking to sell him, but since we're paying him 90 grand a week, nobody's going to match that. We could actually be stuck with a player we don't want. Has Hill got a bit of talent? It was the same conversation as with Danjuma, isn't it? There's something there. You can see things on some highlight reels where you think, yeah, he's got good little bit of magic footwork at times, bit of pace to him. He could do something. Then when you look at any longer game with him play, you think, don't really remember him being on the pitch. Same with both players. So I don't know. What is the solution there? Are we better off just saying, we've got Hill, in he goes when Sonny's not on form, start him some games? Or do we go, is Danjuma really the one that's going to force Sonny out of the team? Hard to tell, isn't it? It's not a player that's really wowed me in any time.
It's hard to tell, but I'll be honest. I'm at the point. This is only me. I can only speak for me, Kuva. I don't speak for you or anyone else in the fan base. I'm at the point where I think Son is playing so bad that I can't see any downside to trying it. If I'm honest, it's like when we had the conversation with Forster and Lloris. For me, sometimes you go, right, who's better? Right, Son on form or Danjuma on form? Of course, we know it's Heung-min Son, but Heung-min Son is playing that bad this season that I'm not seeing many reasons now that are actually logical to keeping him in the 11. Also, if you bring a bloke in who's brand new, depending on the player's mentality, and what people are saying is that his mentality is brilliant. He's a family man. You know, he's very religious. He wants to crack on with his football. If that is true, bringing in a new player and saying, right, go on, you've got a brand new chance here. Go and show us what you've got. That could be a bit of a spark. And that could make some play better and realise, oh, hang on. When I get back in this 11, I've got to turn up because this guy's doing some bits. But
difficult to know without knowing the bloke personally, isn't it? He strikes me as somebody that responds to a bit of adversity as well. When he did get dropped from the team and he came back against Leicester, he was fired up coming on there. That hat trick, sensational stuff. Does he need that on a more regular basis? Could be. Right. On the other hand, that might be a one-off. Generally, he responds to, having praise heaped on him and a bit of a cuddle. Some players do have that sort of mentality. Hard to say, isn't it? All we know is for sure something's not right at the moment.
Yeah, of course it is. And look, I'm a firm believer, and I once had this boss who was brilliant. You know when you work for someone, you think, yeah, I like you. You're good. You're sensible. I like your ideas. He always said to me, Savva, try things. Yeah. We've been doing it like this for years. But try things.
Oh, sorry, I'm still here. I'm just camera off for a moment. I've just got to readjust things.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. Sort yourself out, mate. Yeah, but do you know what I mean? Like, this is the only issue I have with certain sections of the fan base at the moment. Is like you say, we'll try Forster instead of Lloris. Oh no, we can't do that. All right, try Bissouma in a 3 instead of a 2. Oh no, we can't do it. It's almost like we're immune to trying new things, and it will be exactly the same, Kuva, if you can hear me. With
okay.
Yeah, it will be exactly the same with Danjuma.
I think especially with a manager like Conte, Mourinho's kind of the same as well. If you earn his trust, you're pretty much gonna be guaranteed you start in the next game. If you fall out with him, forget it. You're on the sidelines. Is Danjuma going to force his way in? Very hard to say, because I can't say that Son's done something that Conte's going to say, no, he's not the player for me anymore. I think Conte's just a bit frustrated he's not performing to the peak of his ability.
Yeah,
I do see him carrying on playing him, though. I really do.
Yeah,
there's a stubbornness to Conte. There is to Mourinho as well, which has worked for them over their careers. So I'm not going to knock that, but it's strange to the rest of us at times.
Yeah,
we sometimes don't understand why a substitution wasn't made or one was made. He has his reasons for it. We just don't know what they are.
No, absolutely. And I think one of the key things, so I've just lost that comment. I was going to do a super chat, but look, to a degree, I agree with this. Look, it's so difficult because what we do in football is we always judge one situation against another, don't we? So we say, for example, oh, look, that happened at that club, so it will definitely happen at this club. And we don't know that for sure. But there is an element of this, Caveman, I agree, is that I heard this for a long time about Dele Alli. It was, no, he's just in bad form, he'll come back. And whilst I don't think some will go that way, I don't, you never know. And I really wish at some point that Dele Alli had woken up, that Dele Alli had been taken out that firing line earlier on and given that kick up the backside. But am I saying it's the same situation with Son? No. But all I'm acknowledging is that something's not right, and maybe a few games sitting on the bench to watch the team playing might spark something. It might make him sit there and go, God, yeah, I've been poor. I need to find what inside is not working. But we just seem immune to trying anything, Kuva. And I hope that's not the case with Danjuma. I hope he's given a go.
I'll tell you what, Sav, there was something in that game at the weekend, on Monday night, that I saw with Sonny, and I don't recall seeing it before. And it was one time he turned into a pack of players and instantly lost the ball. And in the past, when he's done that, he's determined to get it back and chase his back. This time, all he did was turn around and stroll. Yeah. And I thought, has he given up now? That was really worrying for me. But forget not scoring goals. That, for me, was a sign that player's not really with it. He's not really giving 100%. Is it because he's fatigued? Is it because who knows? There was just something not Sun-like about his performance.
Yeah,
because usually you do get that bundle of energy regardless, don't you? He's been quite notable in games where he's done a lot of chasing back. The goals haven't happened, but he's certainly getting around the pitch. On Monday, didn't even see that really. I thought it was really alarming.
yeah.
One thing leads to another. A little bit of knock, perhaps, but
okay, one thing leads to another. You know, you stop scoring goals, your confidence goes. Your confidence has gone. You stop working as hard. You stop working as hard. People get on your back more, and then it suddenly one issue turns into 4 or 5, and all of a sudden it's how do I address all this in one go? I think for me, look, you never know, right? You know, as you said, you never know a player's personality. But I think at a stage like this, take the guy out the firing line, you know, and see what happens. We saw how he bounced back to being on the bench against Leicester. As you said, let's see, was that a one-off? Or is that how he responds to being dropped? But when people are telling me there's no way he can be dropped because Danjuma's worse. But right now, this isn't Hong-Min's son. Right now, if you had told me this was a bloke we'd signed from the Championship, Kuva, that had never played Premier League, I'd go, yeah. Right now, he's not doing a thing. It's not like he's playing well and not scoring. You know, I just don't understand this. We're not allowed to drop him because his name's Hong-Min's son. I don't understand that.
Yeah, it's that judgment call, isn't it? Like I said, if you've got a player that you know can, at his peak, destroy other teams, it's a tough call to drop him. I mean, how long? Well, yeah, again.
Is it a tough call to drop him? Top managers would drop this player for fun. Top managers, he wouldn't get away with this elsewhere.
I don't know. I don't know, because would Mourinho drop him? He might think it got to get this working because our forward play depends on it.
Mourinho's dropped players throughout his entire career, and he's one of the most decorated managers of all time.
Tends to be because they fall out with him, though, rather than just on the performance. He gives them a bit of a run. He might
getting a free pass week in, week out. This bloke, he's getting a free pass from fans.
Yeah, maybe. Just say different styles of management, isn't there? I think Conte's does seem very sort of set in what he wants from players and what he expects from them. Perhaps that is the reason why Son continues to get the game time. He is that player that from last season that could run beyond the defence, had that burst of pace, which doesn't seem to be there this season, does it? Is that an age thing? Is that a fitness thing? Can't tell.
I don't know. This is the key thing. We don't really, we don't know. That's the key thing. I mean, I keep seeing these interviews with Son where he's talking about getting back into form and he's talking about acknowledging he's not playing well. But how long does it go on for, Ku? For all the people that say they wouldn't drop him, how long untenably can that go on for? Because there comes a point where if you don't drop him at all, and it goes on like this all season, at what point do you go, well, hang on, that's now on the manager because the manager's not done a thing. He's just left him in there. Nothing's changed. Yeah. But, you know, for me, as I've said, I'd love to see the formation changed with Richarlison and Kane up top and Kulusevski in behind.
Again, the counter to it would always be, supposing the new player does come in, does well, Son stays out of the team. Why would you have Son Heung-min sat on the bench for the rest of the season?
Well, if he's not playing well.
Yeah, but I mean, it becomes difficult to justify doing that. Then you've got to think, do we need to sell him now? That's a huge decision.
Yeah, but I just think how he's playing overshadows all of this for me. Well, for me, I don't look at Hong-Min's son in any way as a special player right now. I look at him as a liability to the team, if I'm being really honest.
I agree. It should be a case of a manager just picks whoever they want, regardless of name, regardless of reputation. It should be like that. But there's always a little bit more to it, isn't there? We've got the when you've got the pressures on for merchandise associated with certain players and fans coming from Korea to see their idol, and he's not in the team. that leaves a sort of bad taste for a few people. We're kind of, it's pressures all round to make things work, even though they're not going to. Is it right? No, I don't think it is. Not for winning football, but that seems to be the position we're in at the moment. There's a few other players you could argue they're playing just because there's been a price tag attached to them, or we're struggling to sell them at times. Maybe they give them a little run in the team so people remember they're there. That happened with Dele Alli, as far as I'm concerned. That happened. Even Winks coming back into the team at times. I always felt it's more desperation in trying to get them on the market than it was to their contribution to the team.
Yeah,
are we looking at that with Sonny as well now?
Well, it's comments like this that make me laugh. So I want to take this in its entirety, which is you drop him and he puts in a transfer request. Well done. Right. First and foremost, let's have a look at this. Let's break this down. No player in the history of football should be above being dropped, right? Certainly footballers who are in god-awful form for now nearly 6-7 months, right? So let's stop that silly notion that no one's allowed to be dropped. Second of all, I would love to think that if a player is dropped, I would love to think that their first mentality isn't to go, oh, I'm throwing my toys in a pram, I'm going to leave. I would like to think that he would go, hang on, I need to sort this out. And then he comes back and we go, we've now got the son that we knew and love. But this sort of, if he put in a transfer request, I would think, good. If that's his mentality, I don't think it's Kuva.
Absolutely, get rid of him straight away. Yeah. That's somebody that's only at the club for his own well-being.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not saying he is that guy, Cooper. By the way, I'm just trying to.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think he is either.
I don't think he is that guy. But all of this. Oh, so in that case, does that mean that the 11 for any club can never get dropped at the worry of being put in a transfer request? And this is the thing, Blue Mountain. When we're talking about players' mentality, right? Now imagine Heung-min Son played at Man City, right? He's not playing every single game, right? Pep Guardiola rotates. Grealish, Foden, Mahrez, Alvarez, Gundogan, Silva. None of them are guaranteed a start every single week. So what are we saying? That if Heung-min Son played at Man City and he goes on the bench for Pep, that he goes, no, I'm leaving. Come on, man. This is not a, this is not how it works. Sorry, just 1 second.
No problem. I've got to agree with that, Sav. As horses for courses, we've hung on to Sonny because him and Kane together have just been tremendous. The likes of Man City, they're not in that sort of they have to mould. That Son would be just a luxury option for them. They've got players to fill the gaps anyway. It's not a bother to them who they drop. They can always fill it with somebody else.
Sure.
Even Haaland. You can leave Haaland out of the team and have Alvarez in. Right. Not a problem, is it? Not the same for our club, though. Our drop down at the moment is severe because despite people bigging up Brian Hill.
But it's not severe from how he's playing. That's the difference. If we're talking Son from last year on form, the drop down to Danjuma, Hill, Richarlison, whatever, is dreadful. When we're talking
I'd still take him over Hill this season.
Listen, from what I've seen this year, I think Heung-min Son has looked. I think he's looked atrocious. I don't rate Brian Hill, but at least when Brian Hill's on the pitch, he gives you that. By the way, I'm not saying start him before anyone has a go at me. At least the guy will give his best. Yeah, at least the guy can trap a football. Listen, I don't believe that there should be untouchables. I don't believe that, and especially if they're not in form. Sorry, I just do not think that's right. Just quickly, we got some super chats. Which ones haven't I read out? Philo123 Coys, big up Philo, has said Porro, Skriniar, Danjuma equals FA Cup and top 4. Kuva?
I think Skriniar would make the biggest difference out of all those, I think.
Yeah.
That would give us that kind of solidity at the back. We're desperately missing.
Yeah.
Porro, definitely. I think he's a good player. Danjuma, maybe not. Is it going to get top 4 this season? I don't think it will. I think other teams are now pushing ahead of us. United are on a good run. All right, they lost to Arsenal, but before that, they've been stringing quite a few games together. And they weren't at full strength against Arsenal, still gave a good account of themselves in a cracking game. It looked like a top-of-the-table type clash.
Yeah.
Are we going to get top 4? Newcastle, they've still only lost 1 game this season. They've drawn a couple recently, and they haven't kept up with the lead as much as they would have wanted to. But I don't see us putting on a run that's going to overtake them. I think the top 4 are out of touch for us. Are those 3 signings going to change that around? I don't think so. I really don't. Plus, of course, the likes of United, Newcastle, they could suddenly pull out a big name signing in this window. Wouldn't put it past either of them.
Yeah, it's difficult to know, isn't it? I mean, look, we're sandwiched right in there. United have got a game in hand. If they win that, they'd be 6 points clear. Then what we're saying is, what would we play? 20 games, 21 games, something like that. Then we're saying that whatever Man U do, we must do 2 wins better over the course of the second half of the season. But equally, Newcastle, yeah, I agree. Newcastle, a very good team. I think that for them to be more consistent, they've got to turn a few of those draws into wins. But as you said, they're capable of pulling out some signings. I think it could get us top 4. That if Kane stays fit, I'll caveat that guy is everything. If Kane stays fit, does it guarantee us the FA Cup? I don't know how any signings at all ever guarantee you a cup, because it's a one-off game and you don't know who you're going to come up against. But thank you for the super chat. Then we've got Mbappe James was just popping in with a super chat. Thank you very much. Borodin, big up, mate, has said, Savva, remember your cracker analogy for Henry? Yeah, I can't take credit for Eddie Murphy's comedy, I'm afraid. It was Eddie Murphy's analogy of, if you're hungry and if you're in the jungle and you're hungry and someone throws you a cracker, he was like, that's the best damn cracker you've ever eaten in your life. And that's kind of what it's like being a Spurs fan in a transfer window, isn't it? We're like starved, we're hungry, and it's like, yeah, this player is brilliant. But
I like the mystery accent there. I'm trying to pick that one.
No idea, mate. No idea. Let's see. Ben Hart said Danjuma's just signed the contract. You guys happy with the signing? Well, look, we've been talking about it. It's a loan signing. So for me, I don't think he'll play a lot. If he does, fair play. Let's see what he's made of. I'm not going to judge him based on anything other than that. I think it's unfair to judge him. We don't know what he's been told his remit is coming into this club.
I'm more than happy to see him given a go anyway. Just see what we get.
I agree. I've got no problem seeing players given a go. What I don't like is when we don't give players a go and judge them. I don't like that. You know, when we say, well, you can't give Forster a game instead of Lloris because he's crap. Well, listen, this is a Premier League. Oh, this is a goalkeeper that's had 10 years in the Premier League. He's played Champions League football. He's won titles at Celtic. And we're saying we can't give him 90 minutes. So, yeah, Michael's made a point. Yeah, we were 5 behind with 3 games left last year. Listen, no one's...
We've got Heung-min Son in the chat.
Yeah, I did see that. We've got Heung-min Son, of course. He turns up. Listen, Michael, yeah, no one's saying it's impossible. I don't think that's the message. What I would say is the league this year is a lot stronger than last year. Last year, City and Liverpool ran away with it. Chelsea collapsed massively with the whole Abramovich situation. And then it was Spurs and Arsenal, kind of like neither of us wanted it, if you remember. It was like, you know...
Yeah, I think the trouble is, last season, that both us and Arsenal were looking disjointed at times. It was a real scrappy race, tooth and nail, to get that 4th. This season, we still look disjointed. I think we're playing worse than we were last season.
I do.
And I'm seeing that Man United, after a ropey start, they're putting a run together where they're looking seriously good team. It's only the fact they lost to Arsenal. That was it. I mean, they were talking about the league leaders beating them there, and they gave them a good game. I don't see us matching that level of consistency that they're showing. I think they are starting to find a way to play under Ten Hag, and they're just going to get stronger and stronger. We're currently going the other way, I'd say, overall. Newcastle, phenomenal the turnaround under Eddie Howe, and it's that consistency. One game lost, one game at the heart.
He's my manager of the year. Even if Arsenal win it at the moment, if he recreates this in the second half of the season, that's my manager of the year.
Him manager of the year. Pope has got to be goalkeeper of the year, surely.
Oh, fantastic goalkeeper. But I think what Eddie Howe has done is nothing short of a miracle. I think he gets a lot of stick from people saying, "Oh yeah, but he's taken over billionaire owners." But you know, he spent less money than we have in the same time frame.
There aren't many managers that could have kept that Bournemouth team up in the Premier League for so long. Oh, wow. There was incredible work he did there. Yeah. Criminally underrated manager. I'm pleased for him. He's getting some recognition there.
Yeah, he looks like listen, you do not take a team from League Two, one day away from being relegated to the Conference, to the Premier League, have as much success as he did at Bournemouth if you are not a good coach or manager or both. You simply don't. And that is so underrated, going from League Two all the way to the Premier League and on the cusp of, I don't think they got European football, but did they get it one year?
No, I don't think they did.
No, but they were at one point hovering around that kind of 7th, 8th, playing some nice stuff. Yeah. Tiny little stadium, hardly any budget. For me, I think he's a phenomenal manager. I really do. And for me, I said at the back end of last year, people were saying to me, whose turnaround was biggest since they came into the club? Was it Conte's at Spurs, or was it Howe's at Newcastle? And all day long, I'd always go for Eddie Howe, because he took over a team without a winning 14.
It's very, very similar to what Wimbledon did in the 80s. They came up from the bottom tier. In fact, they came up from non-league, then burst out into the Premier League and stayed there for quite a while. And again, peanuts budget, misfits, cast-offs from other teams, loan signings at times, bringing a few from their youth into the team. Nothing anybody other club would have been in the top sort of, 10 even would have been touching, and they just found a way to make it work. It's really it really does deserve a bit of respect, I think. Dyche, you could say, Sean Dyche, another one similar, working on the absolute shoestring budget. Horses for courses with a lot of it, but some of these managers, Dyche, I never saw as being a top 6 manager. Eddie Howe though, all the way, getting to play some seriously good football while doing this.
I think Eddie Howe as well is one of those progressive managers. I think he wants to get on the front foot. He wants his team to be aggressive and attack. And I feel like I saw Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher having this debate the other night. It was quite interesting. I love it when them two go at each other. And they were saying, like, if you look at all the younger managers coming through in the world of football now, who are they imitating? They're not imitating the Jose Mourinhos and the Contes. They're imitating the Peps and the Klopps and that kind of pressing and passing. Yeah. I'm not saying there's one way to play football, but I like Eddie Howe. I'd take him at Tottenham all day long. I'll be honest. I think he's a terrific manager. And when a few comments, just want to say, like, when we're seeing things like, we might catch Newcastle. Yeah, we might. And one game lost, but only 3 points clear. Yeah. But now let's take this into perspective. Who at the beginning of the season, who would have said that we'd be behind Newcastle after 20 odd games in the league? I heard that they wouldn't even get into Europe and it was too soon for them and they'd need years to put this right. So you've got to look at it from that point of view, that should we be finishing above Newcastle?
I went the opposite way. I've got a bit too carried away with them. I said they could be involved in a title race.
Well, fair enough.
In fact, it was only a few weeks ago I said if they'd won at Arsenal, I think they would have been. I think they're probably chasing a little bit too many at the moment.
Oh yeah, but I think they've done. I think they've done a wonderful job. Howe and Dyche are underrated. Jimmy F said Newcastle results were shite when he took over. Had to sign loads of players to shift the form. Well, yes and no. There's a if you watch the game last night, there's a lot of players in that team that were in the team under Steve Bruce that couldn't win a game for love nor money and in relegation battles. And do you remember everyone was saying when the owners bought them, this could be the first billionaire team owned that get relegated because they were that bad. So I think credit where it's due. Joe Linton, unrecognisable from the player I saw under Bruce. Unrecognisable. Almiron, Callum Wilson still playing. Longstaff still playing. St. Maximin's still playing. Fabian Schär's still playing. Yeah, they've got a lot of players there that were there already. A lot of people. Kuva, I want to talk to you about. I don't want to go for another half hour today, as long as if you're okay for time. Next half hour.
Yeah.
I want to talk about. We talk a lot about managers being backed and what it means. And I was having, again, with the same person I had a good football conversation with someone earlier. And what we said is, I think it's one of these throwaway lines that fans use. We all use these days, all of us. We're all guilty of it. Go, he's not being backed. He's not being backed. But lately, I've been taking a step back to think, what does that mean for each manager in each individual scenario they're in, right? And I liken this, if we start with Tottenham with Conte, the first thing we see is he's not been backed by Levy. And I'm just going to sit on the fence here, and I'm not saying he has been, but what does that mean, Conte being backed from a Spurs perspective, Kuva? Because we all talk about it like he's not being backed to win a league, but that might not be the remit that he's agreed with the club. That might not be the vision right now. Do you know what I mean? So what does backing a manager actually mean to you?
Oh, that's a difficult one, though, isn't it?
Very.
It's furnishing him with the tools he requires to do the job in hand. The question is, what is the job in hand? And Conte has thrown doubt into that when he came out with that quote again about the fifth, sixth, seventh, fourth. What does the club want to do? Where do we plan to finish? What's the goal? So if the goal is only to finish top four, you could argue that, yeah, he's been backed.
Right.
Because there's players in to probably get that over the line if it all goes well. But we are talking about Antonio Conte here. So aren't the expectations higher? His certainly should be. I think a lot of fans, it certainly is, because fans start talking about we're going to win trophies under Conte. So if that's the case, perhaps the backing isn't good enough. Perhaps we should be looking at sort of a few world-class players. Perhaps we should be looking at top-end players that are constantly performing in top-end clubs in the big leagues in the world. Are we getting that in terms of transfers? No. We're getting the odd one or two maybe, but mostly it seems to be on that tier below. Like we are buying players in to do that job and just solidify our top half of the table, pushing for European places and hopefully top four all the time on a budget. So again, are we backing Conte? I don't know. From my point of view, no. From the club's point of view, probably yes. From Conte's point of view, I think definitely no. He's going to want to.
It's an interesting debate. Just quickly, Gogama, big up to yourself as always. Such a brilliant supporter of all the Spurs channels and brilliant in the community. So thank you so much for that. Look, it's just I don't have a horse. I don't have a dog in this fight. I do have two dogs on the bed, but I don't have a dog in this fight, right? I look at it different ways, like in two different ways. Like I said to you before, has Antonio Conte been backed to the point of view where you go, we should be first or second in the league, right? And I think the unequivocal answer is no, he hasn't, right? I think we can all acknowledge that. But like you said before, if the aim of the club this year was top four and that's good enough, and you said, has he been back for top four? And you look and you go, okay, well, in his signings that he's had, he's joined the club and they've got Romero, Son and Kane already, Lloris to a lesser degree. Since he's been at the club, he's added Benton Core, Kulusevski, Perisic, Basuma. When you look at that, and I think that should be getting top four. So I think it's a real strange one when we talk about backs, and this all comes from the conversation Neville had the other day, right? I'm sure you've seen it, where Neville said, well, he's had 200 million in 3 windows. He's been backed. And it made me think, interesting conversation, because
it is, again, it comes back down to what's the level of expectations.
right.
You could say at the moment, 3 points away from Man United, we're in the race for top 4.
Right.
So perhaps you could say Conte's performing what he's expected to do with the tools he's expected to do it with. I think that's the problem, isn't it? Shouldn't we be demanding a lot more than that from this position we've been in for a long time now? We're in the Champions League final a few seasons back. We're challenging from the league 7 or 8 years ago. We've done nothing since then. We've really gone backwards. So justifying doing what we currently are, for me, isn't good enough. We should be doing a lot more. That's the problem. That's the real where how are we backing Conte? And I'm going to go with no. For overall, we're not, because you get this manager in. Let's face it, everybody knows this. It's to win the league. That's why you get Conte in. Forget the cups. He's never got a good record in cups. Not got a good record in the Champions League. You get him in to win that Premier League. If you're not challenging for that, then it's pointless in being here. If you're not going to give him what he needs to do that, it's pointless in being here. If you don't show that level of ambition, it's all pointless pretending you've got that level of ambition. Just say, we're a club that's not going to challenge for the top and we're just going to settle at this level. See what happens then with the fans. Some fans will still accept it, I have no doubt. They'll just say, it's just an entertainment thing. So they're fine with it. I don't understand that mentality, but I don't share it. I angrily don't share it. We're mismanaged from the very top at this club, where all we are is a corporate plaything. That's all it is. It's a little sideshow for all the off-field investments. It's showing badly. Get a big name manager in, get another big name manager in. Story doesn't change. It always comes back to the same old constant. That little bald man at the top who's in the chairman's seat.
Yeah. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I'll tell you what my mate said to me earlier. He said to me, let me phrase it another way for you. He said, if you look at the 3 windows that Conte has had so far, he's had 3? Yeah.
This is the third, isn't it? Yeah.
This is the third, right? If you look at the windows he's had, right? Again, this isn't me. I'm just sitting on the fence. He said, if you had offered those players to Brentford, to Fulham, right? He said everyone would be waxing lyrical at, look at the ambition of those clubs. But because it's at Tottenham, fans don't like it. Now, I looked at this 2 different ways. Like, people outside our club obviously will think different, right, Kuva? It's like, if I'm having a chat with an Aston Villa fan and let's say they buy a centre-half who I rate, right? I could go, great signing that for you guys. Someone could turn around to me and go, yeah, but if you watch us week in, week out, we don't need that. We need a right-sided forward and a left-sided forward and an attacking midfielder or something, right? And that's the difference. People looking into our club go, oh, Basuma. Oh, my God, Richarlison, Brazil's number 9. Perisic from Inter Milan. Longley from Barcelona. But I think what they don't seem to see outside, and again, I'll level this at people like Gary Neville, who should know better. What they don't see is, how does that fit into Conte's style and his ethos for a team? It's just names, isn't it? It's just lots of names rather than a plan.
Yeah, and the managers are just names. There's no
sure.
There's no like just saying a second ago, Conte. Why would any manager, any owner of a club, get Conte in? What is it about Conte that it so appeals? It's the fact he wins these league titles. If you're getting him in, you go the whole distance. You provide what he wants and you just reap the rewards. If he can't manage it, even though he provided those rewards, you say, fair enough, Man City did better or Arsenal did better or whatever. The fact we sit there outside the top 4 and still think this is acceptable and this is what we're trying to do, and then still don't sign any players that he's going to be able to turn around into league winners, It's ridiculous. It's total misfit. Mourinho was a misfit for this club. Conte's a misfit for this club. Yeah. If we're going to not have ambition, take a manager lower down the tiers that can work with on a lesser budget. That's where he comes back to Pochettino. Persevere with him. If you're having a bad season, you just have to accept it, that it's going to need a little rebuild. We didn't accept it. Didn't offer any kind of rebuild whatsoever. Watched it fall down on its arse, and then just sack the manager, go for a different management style, and offer dross to replace what had been broken.
Yeah,
it's a blueprint for what not to do if you want to go for titles.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you can see that.
So it has completed.
It's completed. It's completed. Isn't it strange though, the fact that
after nearly joining Everton's the funny bit?
Well, for me, it's just that there's no. You're not going, oh my, that's a top. Do you know what I mean? That's a top signing. Yeah, and through no fault of the player, it's not his fault. It's not the player's fault, and I think we need to remember that, right?
Yeah.
That we've got to get behind him when he does play. We've got to get behind that guy, and it doesn't matter whether he's starting on the right for Kulu or on the left or up front. We've got to get behind the guy. And
I think the easy acid test for is the player any good now is if we managed to sign him, why didn't Chelsea?
Yes,
it's the obvious one at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at it, I keep thinking with this kind of Porro stuff as well. I wouldn't listen. I wouldn't be a Spurs fan if I didn't have these feelings in my stomach, Kuva. I'm looking at this Porro deal, and again, this isn't me going, "Oh my god, I desperately want him." I've just got this horrible feeling that we're going to leave it to what we have, like the last 5-6 days of the window, and the moment a fee is agreed, you can just see either Chelsea or City, because they've got the buyback clause, going bang, and we're going. We've been gazumped the way we gazumped Everton. It's Spurs. It's Spursy, isn't it, Kuva? You can see it, and I'm prepared. I'm mentally
again. Yeah, as we've been saying, I'm so cynical of this club now. I think it's an actual ploy for it to happen, so we can just give the illusion we were trying to spend money this window. It just smacks of everything that's happening. Loan deal for somebody we're not really bothered about, but they're there anyway. And then, we didn't manage to get the big signing we were trying to get because it proved too difficult because we never even offered the asking price. That is so us.
Yeah. It's you can almost see it, can't you? I can see it, and then I can also see loads of Spurs fans having debates about it after it happens. Of it's not the club's fault, and
we couldn't be held to ransom and things like that when you're haggling over 5 million of a 45.
Yeah. Listen, I hope it's not true. It will be lovely in the next couple of days. Look, I don't know. Porro could come in and be dreadful. We don't know.
I'll tell you what, if it does get hijacked, I'm just going to laugh because that's all you can do nowadays.
It is.
It's just another funny addition to the comedy club.
To Tottenham. Yeah, just quickly, another super sticker from Gogomar. Thank you so much. It's always appreciated. And Spartan 7 Gaming, who has just become a member as well. So if anyone does want to become a channel member, you can do. Thank you so much, sir or madam. I don't know who's running the account. Said, just look at all the wasted money on Levy purchases rather than save that cash and buy smartly. And I think, look, when you look at that statement, it's bang on. It's felt to me that down the years, when we've done these 7-8 signings in a window and everyone goes, oh my God, he's been backed. It feels like that most of the time, 50, 60, 70% of them are for the sake of it rather than we need it. Do you know what I mean? So I make Spartan 7 Gaming absolutely spot on with that.
Yeah, I think my favourite ever signing that Levy's done was Gedson Fernandez. Actually paying money to sit somebody on loan in the reserves at the club for no reason for a whole season. And what was the objective of that? We weren't going to buy him. It didn't give a monkeys if he's going to improve or not. Certainly weren't going to play him, but pay money for him to be here. What? It's just baffling, some of it. Jack Clark as well. It's just, why? What made them think it was ever going to be good enough?
Listen, I felt that with when we bought Royal, when we bought Sessegnon, when we bought Clark. I mean, if we sat and went through all the names, we'd be here till next year. So Ben Hart has said Spurs have now given. Oh, sorry, he's quoting Alistair Gold and said Spurs have now given the green light for Jed Spence to head out on loan for the remainder of the season, with Leicester and Brentford among those interested. I mean, he needs a move, right? Otherwise, he's just wasted a year of his career, hasn't he?
Yeah. Like most people do if they sign for us.
Yeah. Oh God, Tottenham Hotspur. Grant Davidson said 100% happening. Chelsea will take him in regards to Porro. Blue Mountain said we saved on Danjuma's flight to the UK because Everton paid for that. I saw earlier that they actually had all the promotional videos and his welcome video all done. Like literally, they were set to announce it. I mean, if it happens to us, just remember there's a word called karma, right?
Well, wasn't that William?
Yeah. Spencer lads go on loan. AJ, who looks like a Chelsea fan, has said, Savva, we want Gusto from Lyon, so you're fine. Yep, absolutely. I like Gusto, by the way, whenever I've seen him. He looks like he's got something about him. Fabrizio has dropped a Porro update. Oh, another one. What's happening today? How many millions are we away? Let's see what.
Hoping to finalise an agreement this week, maybe.
Hopefully finalising a meeting time. Yeah. Fabrizio Romano, for the last few things Fabrizio has said will be, here we go. 4 minutes ago. Understand there's growing optimism on Pedro Porro deal. Tottenham hope to get it done as Sporting are already exploring the market for a replacement. Fine details being discussed, but all parties feel it could be done soon after today's meeting. Just so we can see where that is. That is what he said.
So basically nothing.
So, I mean, do you know what? I'm going to ask you a question here. Do you think the fact that we take all this time to get these type of players as well, that it does absolutely dampen the excitement when a player like this does come in?
Yeah.
Like, I just feel like get it done. And when he signs, it'll be, okay. Rather than, you've seen that deal.
It sets out the stall for me straight away of, we're looking at this player, but we don't really want him. We'll just work away while we're looking for something better.
Yeah.
What message does it give to the players as well? Because the players must be thinking, well, if they want me that bad, surely they would have just paid the fee.
I agree. And as we said earlier in the show, Kuva, if it is Conte's first choice for a right wing back, I'd be thinking he should have been in my team for Arsenal. He should have been in my team for City. He should have been in my team for Fulham.
Yeah,
he's in my team for Preston. Then, man, do you know what I mean? Like, look, I really hope this guy's good because when we get him, if we get him, I really hope he's good. Otherwise, it will get toxic because people will say, "Oh, all this time and this is what we've got."
I'm still leaning towards we're not actually getting him though.
I just never count my chickens as a Spurs fan now. Listen, do I trust?
We don't sign chickens. We'll sign cheap eggs. Some of them out of date.
Oh, good God! Yeah, it is bad, isn't it? I mean, I wanna switch on Sky Sports News and see breaking news, and it to be a player that we've not talked about that excites me. No offense to Danjuma, do you know what I mean? Like, I want us to click on and we go, Spurs have signed James Maddison. And you go, what? Like, I mean, can you imagine? People talking, right? People talk about get a Bastoni, get a Vardial. And these are players who are like 70 million plus. And we're haggling for Pedro Porro.
Weren't we haggling for Adama Traore at one point as well?
Don't rule him out. Rule him out.
We're not going to spend 11 million on him. We'll offer 3 again and a loan deal for somebody.
listen, I've seen stranger things than Spurs losing out their target in Porro, and then on deadline day getting Traore, and
for a
then
completely different position. Yeah.
half our fan base going, oh, but remember what he did with Victor Moses, blah, 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 blah.
I remember when we used to do this in the 80s and 90s, though, when we couldn't get any decent players at the back, so we'd just go out and spend the money on another forward. It was all right. It was all right at times there because you ended up with some great attacks. But we don't do anything now. It's all about price and can we make a small profit on it.
Yeah. I mean, look, when we're talking about Atavatron, is that right? Atavatron Wembley one, brilliant name, has said pound for pound, 10 million for Jack Clarke is quite possibly the worst ever signing by the club. At the risk of blowing up the chat, pound for pound chat, who is the worst signing you've ever seen? I'm going to chuck someone like Ndombele in the ring for pound. If we're talking pound for pound and what they've given the club back, at least Jack Clarke, how much did Jack Clarke even play for us? It's not like we can say he had 3 seasons in a row where he played every game and was crap. It was a bad signing because he was never going to play. But I mean, Kuva, give me a couple off the top of your head.
We got to look at the likes of Rebrov, a lot of money at the time. Didn't really perform, but he did play though. Ndombele, very little play time for a huge fee. Lo Celso, again, same sort of deal. Who else would we be talking other than that? Even the likes of Emerson Royale, we've actually got a lot of play out of him. Not very good, but I mean, he has at least played for the team. So I think it's actually a fair shout saying Jack Clarke because he never did anything.
Yeah.
We've had players that don't play, loads of them like that, but that's for the money spent. We did actually recoup most of the money though, didn't we? If it goes well, so that's something I suppose. You could look at what's his name? The French fullback went to as a Forest at the moment.
Oh, Serge Aurier.
Serge Aurier. How much did we spend on him? That was about 25 million or something silly, wasn't it? We didn't get any of that money back. Had to cancel his contract, so that's pretty bad value.
This one?
Oh yeah, that's a really good shout. In fact, because that first season he looked good, and since then bloody awful. Value for money is a difficult one. I suppose it's quite a few years back as well, so that was a huge transfer at the time. Yeah. Really big money.
We're seeing the same names sort of pop around in terms of we've got Dirty Sanchez here, we've got Sanchez again, Sanchez, Stambouli, who I don't think actually cost a lot, but again, another poor signing. Postiga's name being chucked in the mix. Ndombele, Sanchez. Longlay's on loan. I wouldn't say somebody just put in the Ivory Coast. Are you talking about who Serge Aurier plays for?
Yeah.
Ryan Sessegnon at 30 million for me, baffling.
Sissoko as well.
Oh,
dreadful player at 30 million.
Oh, and still people say to me, he had a good year. I'm like, what? Did he? Are you sure?
Had a good year, but compared to what though? We could have spent that money on a footballer.
I'll tell you what, this is a guy I felt massively sorry for. Sorry for Roberto Soldado. You don't sign Roberto Soldado and play him in a one up top. He's the small striker that scores goals. It just never made sense for me. AL has come out of Lo Celso. Bentley. Fazio. I don't think Soldado was shocking at all. I don't think he was shocking. I just think this was a man completely played out of position.
Needed a strike partner and needed the ball crossed into the box on a regular basis.
Right.
Right. Why get him?
Yeah,
Vincent pretty poor, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Soldado, Janssen, Nji, Nkudu,
Paulinho.
Kevin's got Paulinho. Lamela, I suppose you could say, well, at least he had 7 or 8 seasons to spread that money out across. I don't know.
Yeah, I suppose.
Isn't he nearly? He was nearly due a testimonial, that bloke.
The fact that we used him as part exchange to get Brian Hill in, basically a deal worth 45 million, kind of makes it even worse, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really, really does. Someone's put Eric Dyer. I mean, I don't think for what Eric Dyer's given the club over the last 6-7 years, I think we paid about
12 million. No, it wasn't even that much, was it? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's always going to be players. I mean, Adebayor, interesting player, Adebayor.
He had some good seasons for us, I thought.
I thought at times he's unplayable. I mean, he's another one. He's a maverick, isn't he? At times you go, he's the complete centre forward. Other times he just didn't look bothered, and I think that was half the problem. In terms of, last thing I want to discuss, in terms of where we sit right now with this squad, do you see anyone else overtaking us, or do you think we've got enough to stay in that 5th, 6th position? Can you see us dropping out of Europe, I suppose, is the question I'm asking.
There's Liverpool and Chelsea are behind us. They're always going to be a threat. They can get their act together at some point. There's too much quality in those squads to be floundering around mid-table for too long. Chelsea, you'd have to argue, got the hardest job because they got just so many new players in.
Yeah,
nobody can gel all that lot together overnight. But when they do gel together, I think they're going to be formidable again.
I do. I think I said the other day. I think you were on. I don't know if you were on stream when I said to that guy. Yeah, well, I said to that guy that I bet him £1,000 that Chelsea finish above Arsenal next season. Chelsea will not be great this year, but when you look at the players coming in like Nkunku and Mudryk, Yao Felix, once they get Reece James back, Ben Chilwell back, Fofana, Badashili, if they add a striker, add a centre mid, they're gonna. It will settle. It will settle. They will stop spending hundreds of millions at some point, and they will be a good team. And I don't think it'll be this year. I think they'll get better this year, Kuva. I think once. The problem is this for me with the whole Potter situation. Potter's got like 11 first-team injuries there, plus all these new players, and everyone wants instant results. And it's like, well, he's got no chance at all to ever get anything resembling what he wants his 11 to look like. But I think they will slowly move up that table throughout the rest of the next 17, 18, 19 games. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I can see that happening. Certainly with Chelsea, yeah, we've just said the longer term thing. Liverpool only needs to start just that spark to be recaptured. How many injuries have they got at the moment? It's quite a lot as well as Chelsea, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think soon as it's them with Liverpool, it's about their midfield. They're struggling there, players getting on a bit, and some key ones missing through injury. I think as soon as the form comes back on a couple of players, they'll be flying again.
Yeah,
Trent Alexander-Arnold, you can't write him off for having like a drop in standards for half a season.
I mean, if you look at this, right, this is the missing players, right, between Liverpool and Chelsea at the weekend. Missing players, right? Artur, Luis Diaz, Firmino, Van Dijk, Diego Jota, Ben Chilwell, Fofana, Reece James, Yao Felix, N'Golo Kante, Pulisic, Mendy, Sterling, Zakaria, Broja. Fabinho was on the bench, but he said he didn't want to bring him on because he wasn't fit, but he brought him on because he felt he needed to manage the game. Can you imagine Tottenham Hotspur? That's 17, 18 injuries those players have read out.
A lot of those players walk straight into our team.
But can you imagine Spurs having 11 first-team injuries? Can you imagine the 11 we'd have to put out? So this is why I don't jump on this whole Chelsea are terrible. I you know me, I take a step back from things and go, let's see what happens when they ride this storm. Let's see what happens, because same with Liverpool. Yes, they need some midfielders, but at the moment, when you look at the fact they're missing Van Dijk, do you know what I mean? Van Dijk, Diego Jota, Luis Diaz, Firmino. How many goals are they missing with those three? You know, be careful what we. This is why I don't belittle other teams. So I don't.
I think Jota was one of the most underrated signings of the season at the time. It was just that player that gets you those goals to see you over the line in a couple of games. What we've been sorely missing for decades, even. I think the last time we had something like that is when we had 4 strikers, and we're talking about the days of Dimitar Berbatov and Robbie Keane. Then Jermaine Defoe. Who else do we have? Was Crouchy there at that point as well?
Oh God, I know we had 4 at one point, didn't we? Have the 4 we had. I remember we had. Was it Berbatov, Keane, Defoe, and Bent all at once? Maybe.
Oh yeah, of course. It was way too early for Crouchy, wasn't it?
Yeah. Just quickly, this comment here, Greg. I mean, this again is a sweeping generalisation of something we've got no way of knowing this yet. The guy's been in the job 4 months, and he's got most of his best players out injured. So just relax. Let him.
It doesn't matter. It's Greg Spurs. It's a Pochettino question.
Oh God, yeah, of course. I'm sure he hasn't said about Poch. I mean, if we're talking about managers that can only manage cheap players, couldn't we chuck Poch into that mix at PSG?
Yeah. That's not a normal management job, PSG. Always knew he's going to fail there. Most people will. You've got to have somebody with a really big personality there that's dominant and doesn't take the shit off players. That's going to be Zidane's of the world, isn't it? Mourinho's or people like that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Phil has said 2 injuries and we were already crying, let alone 11. Mate, this is my point.
Yeah.
This is my massive point about it. We're very quick to have a look at other teams that are below us that have got all their best players out injured. We lost Kulu and Bentancur for a short period of time and went into meltdown. Now imagine you're missing Romero, Kane, Kulusevski and Bentancur all at the same time. Kuva, any last words? We're going to wrap up in a couple of minutes. Any last words you want to say? Anything that you can give us hope for the next 5 days of the transfer window?
Enjoy the comedy unfold. That's all I'm going to think of. If we actually manage to get Porro over the line, that'll be a good signing, I think. Will Conte favour him? I don't know. I'm not so sure he will. I think he does definitely seems to favour really strong, physically strong players. Bit of height on them. Is that Porro? Don't think so.
That's going to be interesting, isn't it?
It kind of looks like Porro's assigning a certain manager I can think of likes really pacey, athletic wing backs that go up and down all day long and have a bit of talent going forward. Mm-hmm. Certainly fits a Pochettino type character if they came in.
Yeah. This is the thing again. How much of this is a completely separate debate. How much of what we're seeing at the moment is about a new manager coming in and not having Conte there? You look at Spence, you look at Adoji. Are they 2 wing backs, 2 fullbacks for the future under a new manager that plays more progressive football? I don't know. You look at Sarr, you look at Hill. They're going to send Hill out on loan, so that means they want him here, right? Sarr, Hill. You look at those 2. You look at Porro. I mean, I don't know. Just theories. They're all theories, right? They're all theories. None of us know. End of the
day, relatively cheap. That's why we're struggling to get Porro over the line, because he isn't so cheap.
I mean, in football terms, he is, isn't he? Like, in terms of
not to us.
No, not for us. I mean, Moldy Pickle has come out with a controversial one, which I find funny. Says, was it even Kulu and Bentancur that put us into meltdown, or Conte's strict system? Moldy Pickle, you've got Greg Spur in the chat. You're not allowed to say anything about Conte, mate. He'll lose his mind.
Because we're definitely winning trophies.
Yeah. Again, Panarotti said, last night out, there's no way we're paying that much money for Porro, and Conte is not on board with the signing. This is not a spent situation. Okay. So I'm going to ask you this then. we paid 60 million for Richarlison. Is Richarlison a Conte signing? If he is, why is he not getting anything out of him? This is where we can't pick and choose. Well, can we, Kuva? You know, we can't just turn around and say this is an expensive signing, it's Conte's, because we laid out all that money on Richarlison. He hasn't played him up front, I don't think, once.
Yeah. Talking to Bob Spur a while back. Bob Spur has always been an advocate of the phrase, you know, not until he's lifting the shirt. So to know if we've actually signed somebody or not.
Sure.
I'll take it a step further now to find out if it's one of the manager's type of players. Is he on the pitch? Because we're getting players that do not get regular games. And people say, oh, it's definitely a Conte signing. How do they know that? The only one we know for sure out of anybody recently is that Jed Spence is not somebody Conte wanted.
Exactly.
The rest of it is pure guesswork.
And this is why I don't give any cadence to Kuva, to all these people that are now saying he didn't want any of these signings in the summer, because they're the same fans telling me that he wanted all of them other than Spence. By the way, Greg, Bastoni was for the future too. Bastoni came through the Inter Milan youth team. He wasn't bought for Antonio Conte. A little bit of research on your part and you'd know these things. Borodina said, send Hill to Brentford and kidnap Raya while we drop the lad off. Stephen has said, could have been interesting if Fonseca came in instead of Nuno. I mean, how long ago does that saga seem? The Fonseca in saga.
Yeah, this last few years has really dragged, doesn't it? Used to be... I remember us chasing Leicester and thinking we could win the league here. We're playing great football. That seems decades ago. Mm-hmm. It nearly is a decade ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just getting worse and worse, isn't it? It's excuses made for almost anything that happens with this ownership.
Yeah.
I think that's the most disappointing thing. Fans are starting to wake up. Not enough, though. Some people will argue against anything you say about them. Levy can do no wrong. And the argument always starts with, look at the ground he built. It's like, you know, oh, that's won us trophies, has it?
Yeah.
Try and fit that in the trophy. That'll be a new one. Try and fit the ground in its own trophy cabinet.
Kudos has said they're either good footballers or they're not. It's not manager signings that is the ultimate verdict on a player's success. I agree, and I agree. I agree to the point of view, look, good players, right? But I also acknowledge that if you are Antonio Conte, you want 3 top centre backs, you want top wing backs. But I agree with you to a degree. Star-Lord has said, I think Danjuma is a top player. He tore us apart a couple of years ago at Old Trafford. Phil President has said Bastoni was never going to happen. If Spurs wanted him properly, they would have put in a bid. Inter needed to sell. The Sunning Group, Greg Spur has said, full ball, I go potty when they try to cover Conte. They're so nice with Potter. Have you noticed? I think that the difference is, Greg, is that no one's talking about Potter in the glowing terms that you are talking about Conte. You don't seem to acknowledge anything the man does wrong. Let's see. Danny Kirk said Richarlison was not a Conte signing. Conte wanted 2 others before Richarlison. Just saying he okayed it, but wasn't his choices. Danny, how do we know this? I'm sorry. How do we know this?
Danny's the most secretive ITK of the lot, by the way.
Oh, but it's too easy. Right. So, Danny, was Kulu and Bentancur wanted by Conte? And you know the reason I'm asking this, Kuva, is because Kulu and Bentancur, when they came in, and loads of people going, who are these? They're rejects, blah, 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 blah. If one of them hadn't have worked out, all we'd be hearing now is they weren't a Conte player. Every player that works out is a Conte player. Everyone that doesn't wasn't wanted by Conte. The narrative is, it doesn't fit for me. There's got to be some middle ground with that.
Oh, Danny's full of information, though. I mean, he'll go when we're backstream. Sometimes he'll start talking about what's happening at the club, and 3 hours later, while I'm trying to remain awake, I'll go, "Oh yeah, big up, Danny."
So I thought that was going somewhere. Yeah, look, I just think that there's got to be middle ground, and Spurs fans seem to think it's one way or the other. They're all his players, or none of them were his players. I think that some of them he's got to take accountability for, i.e. Basuma. Was Basuma wanted by Antonio Conte?
For me, not particularly. He wasn't in a rush to get him in the team, was he? And then when he started saying things like he's not ready to play this sort of system, I just thought, well, why would we buy a player that's not suited for the system then? Then it screamed of he's at a price that Levy likes, and he's a name that's good enough for Paratici to like, and perhaps a lot of the fans to like. I did. I thought it would be a good signing. I thought it'd be a great signing, in fact.
I think he was a very good signing. I think we've listen. I'll put this one on Conte. I think we've got a manager that hasn't got the best out of a very good player because of his formation. I'm sorry. I've seen it. Look, we've seen enough of Basuma for 4 years in the Premier League to know what he does, right? And then he comes to Tottenham Hotspur, doesn't play well. Oh, he wasn't wanted by Conte. Again, look. How do we know? I'm sorry. How do you know this? This is a guess. This is an educated guess. Not even educated, if I'm honest. Look, look, sorry, Danny. Danny, mate, if you can't come up with a source, mate, then this means nothing. Suma was not on Conte's list. It was an opportunity presented by the club, and he said, okay, he's good. How do you know? I'm sorry. I just hear so much BS. So who of the signings, Danny, were Conte signings? I'd love to know. Like, I don't understand anymore. I don't understand. I just don't get it. Oh, I don't get it.
It always goes back to me the fact we got a director of football with there's a dilution of what's wanted and what's provided.
Sure, of course.
It never seems the case. I can't think of the last time we had a manager who was just picking their targets.
Of course. But there's still some deep, like, for example, even if Basuma wasn't his player, right? That's a good player. Do you know what I mean? There's no excuse for me of not getting the maximum out of Yves Basuma. We've seen him do it year in, year out, week in, week out for Brighton. So for me,
I think the one that overall now is sets the alarm bells running is if we sign Porro, we've currently got 4 right wing backs. 4.
Listen, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying any manager at this club ever gets 100% of their targets. I'm just saying this man is protected more than any other Spurs manager I've ever seen in the history of Spurs managers. Every other manager's had to get on with what they were given as well, right? Every other manager has. And look, for me, I get frustrated. I feel like you can put Basuma in a 3 in the middle. You know, like, okay, here's an example. If we're saying we've got no one to replace Son, as good as Son, right? Separate debate. Why not go to the 2? Why not go to the 2 up front and get Basuma in the midfield, pack it to a 3? I just don't understand. But Danny, we could play this game for the last 20 Spurs managers, couldn't we?
Oh, I certainly agree with this one.
No, of course, but we can't pick and choose, right, Kuva? This is the problem. We can't pick and choose which manager we apply this logic to, right? Anyway, listen, I do need to go. Yeah, Lookman, Eunice. He's protected because fans are tired of the manager merry-go-round. But the manager merry-go-round didn't just suddenly, why didn't that stop them doing it with Jose or Poch or Nuno? I don't understand why it suddenly landed on this guy and he's so protected.
Oh, it doesn't matter. The merry-go-round carries on. We're on the downswing at the moment.
Of course. I just want... Unfortunately, I've said this before. I just want some fans and some YouTubers to be able to have a reasonable conversation about Conte. And it's not just, there's never anything that is in his control. He's not to blame for anything. I see it both ways. I see the club that don't give a manager what they need, which we always see. But I also see a manager that plays a god-awful brand of football. And You look the other night, right, against Fulham. Fulham got promoted this year. And especially in that first half, look how organised as a team they were. The energy as a team, the pressing as a team, the passing to each other was slick. And yeah, I hear, but
what was the real difference at the end of the game? We had Harry Kane. That's it.
Harry Kane. That's it for me. I'm sorry. It's just listen. I don't want. Don't get me wrong. This isn't about having a go at Conte. I just want people to be fair. When it's on Conte, I think people should say, yeah, he's had a mare there. When it's not, we say it's not. But when it's constantly just Levy out, ENIC out, Levy out, ENIC out for every tactic, every substitution, every goal we concede, for me, I think it's putting people off the Levy, ENIC out movement. I'm going to be honest. I'm seeing people say it to me. Say it's just become, it's overshadowed football. But hey, that's me. Yeah. Anyway, you know me. You know my feelings on Conte. I know your feelings on Conte. And I just don't care. But look, we're gonna, Danny, you've just joined the stream. I'm gonna leave, mate. I've got a meeting in 3 minutes. I'll WhatsApp. Hang on, Danny. Danny, I've got to go.
I didn't know you have a meeting. I was gonna say if you've got a few minutes after backstage, I can tell you some stuff.
I'll WhatsApp you. I'll send you a WhatsApp.
All right.
Cheers, bro. Yeah. So Kuva, other than that,
get out, Kyriakou. Get out.
Yes. Yeah, sorry, it's just a tiny bit too late. Anyway, Kuva, thank you so much. Really enjoyed that. Nice speaking football.
It's always good to have a good whine about our team, isn't it? Because that's what it's worth.
Yeah. Listen, it's going to be a really interesting second half of the season. Well, we're in it now. It's there to play.
Let's just hope Danjuma has some sort of worthwhile impact. That'd be nice for a change, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Hodl Crypto. Oh, Bob. So I know you're backstage. I'm literally ending the show. Bob, go away. I know you're taking the piss. Go away.
I know you've got a meeting. I'm just winding you up.
Go away then. Right. Just the last thing I'm going to say, Hodl Crypto. I'm still waiting for an apology for you for when you came on and battered me on my YouTube channel, telling me that I knew nothing about football and I was in the mud when Argentina lost their first game after I predicted they win the league. I still haven't seen an apology for you saying all that stuff. And by the way, if you think that I'm making excuses for Levy, then you don't watch me or listen at all. Kuva, thank you so much. Much appreciated, mate. And I will speak to you very, very soon. Everyone in the chat, thank you for watching. Thank you for the super chats. Please like, please subscribe. We'll be back later. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers.